Yeah, they don't have like
an
like
esophagus,
throat muscles.
Yeah.
It just transitions into their bodies.
They just obviously
Obviously
they don't really have a
frogs have
neck.
tongues.
Frogs, do they?
No, not really.
Head, body.
Yeah,
It's more like mouth body. You know?
they don't
About it.
they don't need a throat because they just close their eyes.
Hello and welcome to What's on the Fourth Floor. I'm your host Carter Walford, together with my co-hosts
Ethan Goebbels.
And Taylor
How
Billington.
you guys doing this fine morning? Just barely.
Just barely.
We've
6
got about
minutes.
6 minutes before
We
you
took-
can't say that.
We're about an hour behind schedule, but nobody's surprised, so it's not a big deal.
I came into this expecting that.
It's becoming the What's on the Fourth Floor tradition, really. It's like you schedule to start the podcast at a certain time, expecting to start about an hour later
Yeah, I don't think I've personally been on a podcast that has started
on time.
even within half an hour of the start time.
That's what makes them fun, though.
Yeah.
You never know what's going to happen.
You never know what's going to happen,
Yeah.
and we'll be ready to record, and then we'll just sit around for half an hour chatting.
That is what
And,
happened this
No,
morning.
we get the juices flowing. You know,
The juice is flowing.
You know,
We
we
you
have
tell
actually
listeners,
we
the
have
juices are
started.
flowing right
Yeah,
now.
they're flowing right
They're
now.
flowing.
We have actually started podcasts on time in the past.
Mhm.
And they were not my favorite podcasts.
Not as
'cause
good.
They just you don't feel ready to
it's
go.
correlated.
Yeah.
You see, there's some things that are necessary, even though they look like you're just wasting time and procrastinating. It's good for you, you know.
Right.
This
And that's-
podcast, I just want to point out, would have started probably 20 minutes sooner if Carter hadn't forgotten all of the headsets when he showed up here.
That's also a problem, but I wasn't ready to start, so I had some thinking time on the walk back and forth from my apartment, and
And so now you're ready.
so now I'm ready.
All right. for
and
the
we'll
first
get
segment.
into
Necessary.
it with the first segment. What's with that? So, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, how many continents are there?
I
Well,
see.
Yeah, we're doing this.
I see.
Okay.
Ethan, can you tell me how many continents are on planet Earth?
They tell me there are 7.
And who told you this?
Quite a few teachers I had in elementary school.
That's interesting. I know now that you grew up in North America.
I
Probably
did.
probably the United States.
How'd you know?
Because a lot of, especially South American schooling,
Uh-huh.
is a 6-continent centric. They call North and South America one continent.
What?
Yeah.
Well, they might as well call Europe and Asia one continent. if they're
People
gonna
do
call
that
it.
as well. Eurasia.
That's a thing.
Ooh, so now we're down to what, 5 continents?
5?
5
Yeah.
continents.
But there's a canal between North and South America, the Panama Canal.
Yeah.
But I guess we ignore canals.
There's a canal between Africa and
Yeah, the
Europe.
Suez Canal. And if we're ignoring the Panama Canal, we probably have to ignore the Suez Canal as well, don't
All
we?
right.
So now
We're
we
down to
have
4.
the massive Afro-Eurasian continent, America, and then these two. And compared to how massive these two continents are, is Australia really a continent?
It's compared to those two, it's an island.
Compared to those two, it seems like it's just an island. And Antarctica's big enough. It is very large, unless
Take
you
out
think
all the
about
ice.
the actual land mass of Antarctica, in which case it looks more like Indonesia, which is definitely, it's an archipelago. I'll put like a heat map or something on the...
Okay.
So if you remove all the ice, which doesn't count because it's water, you wouldn't count water.
Yeah, the North Pole isn't a
Mhm.
continent.
Not a continent. So we take, so now we have 2 continents. But
2 continents and some other smaller landmass.
2 continents, some other islands around.
Okay.
You know, that's the world we live in.
2 continents, a massive island,
Mm-hmm.
ice.
Ice and a bunch of ice. But I don't think
I like
many
this.
people.
I
like
don't.
this. What?
I do not like this.
Yeah, I don't
mean,
think
it's
a
more
lot of people would
true.
like this.
Really?
So we can go back. We can go the other way.
Oh,
Alright,
wait.
Let's
What do you mean go the other way?
we got 7 continents. You know, wipe off the whiteboard. We're back to
Okay.
7. If we count Australia as a continent, there's probably some other big islands that might want to be counted as continents as well. I happen to know.
By the way, by the way, in the elementary classes that I took, that
Mhm.
when they told me that there were 7 continents, they refused, or they told me that we could not call Australia an island
Because it's a continent.
because it is a continent.
Okay.
It's also a country, which is unique, you know?
Yeah.
Is
The
there
one
is there a
country
defining
continent.
difference between a continent and an island, or is it just the size?
I think it's just
I think Australia is really the only exception.
yeah, because when you think about it, they're all the continents are islands.
Yeah, technically.
Yeah.
They're
They're all surrounded
connected.
by water.
I would imagine there's some sort of like geographical like defining difference though.
Is
like
Australia like
something
the
with,
only
like,
large landmass?
plates or something.
Wait,
That okay? So we
on the-
bring up plates.
Yeah, the plates is
The-
what I was about to say on its plate.
We're getting to those. I got a plan.
Okay,
all right?
all right,
I gotta
okay.
follow
Okay,
the
okay.
script that I have.
Script.
Anyways, there's other large islands that might want to be called continents. I happen to know the coastline of both Australia and Japan. Japan's massive, by the way. It doesn't look like it because of Mercator projection, but if you like moved it to the United States, it'd stretch from Maine to Florida, like off the coastline.
Oh yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Huh.
And so the coastline of Australia is approximately 35,000 kilometers, whereas the coastline of Japan is about 30,000 kilometers. So they're like, if you're going from by coastline, they're about the same size. So, you know, we make Japan a continent as well. You can make arguments for other big islands, Madagascar, Greenland, although
New Zealand, the one
New
right
Zealand.
next to Australia.
And Japan has way more people, so surely it should be a different continent. And another thing that we divide continents up by is cultural differences. And Japan has its own culture. But cultural differences, that is the only difference between Asia and Europe. Should be one continent. But we draw lines because they're so different.
Hmm.
There are some other places in the world, big
Oh, boy.
places, that are very different from one another. India is quite different from the rest of Asia.
India, they do call India a
The
subcontinent.
Why is it a subcontinent? Let's make it a continent.
Okay.
You,
okay,
me,
goes-
the listeners, we've decided it's a continent. There's also the Middle East, the Arabian Peninsula. That's
Mhm.
quite a large area with a different culture. Let's call that a continent too. And that also lines up with the continental plates.
It does, yeah. I just brought
Yeah.
up a map.
So we have the North American plate, the Eurasian plate. So they only, as far as plates go, Eurasia's one place. But there's the Indian plate, the Arabian plate, the
Yep.
African plate, the South American plate. The plates kind of get messed up though. There's the Nazca plate, which there is no land on. There is the Pacific plate, again, no land
land.
masses. There's the Caribbean plate. Are we calling the Caribbean a continent as well? Geologists, no. Stay out of the conversation.
Okay. Wait, you're the one who brought the tectonic plates into the argument.
Mm-hmm. So if they stay
You gotta
in,
have every angle, you know.
There's-
all right.
there's anywhere. So I think we've decided here that there's anywhere between 2 and like 13 continents. And that's as specific as I'm willing to say. If anyone ever asks me, that is my response. What
There
do you
is
guys think?
Between 2 and 13,
Yeah.
probably.
So are you still sold on 7? Or are you having doubts about your elementary schooling?
I was never sold on 7 in the first place. First of all, I was probably angered by the fact that we could not call Australia an island.
Mm-hmm.
So that I was probably like, well, then why should we call it a continent? I mean, why should we call it a continent?
Why should we call it a continent? I'm on board.
But Australia is also like there's the Australian plate.
Mhm. So it's got some geological backing. You know?
Yeah.
It's like if Pluto didn't have a bunch of stuff in the way of its orbit, you could make a stronger argument for it being a planet. But it's not.
Well, this makes me think if aliens visited. I always like thinking about human culture in terms of like, well, what would aliens think about this, or how would they classify continents? Well, first of all, we would probably have to explain to them like
Do
what
you
a
think
continent
aliens
is.
would care what continents are?
Eventually.
Alien geologists, yeah.
You know?
If
Okay.
they're not,
It
like
might
if they're
not-
not conquerors, they're probably explorers. They're coming here to explore our world.
It might not be the first thing on the agenda. They show up and they're like, how many continents do you have?
First
What if we say
question.
7? They're like, nah,
No.
too many. We'll
Wrong.
move on.
And then they leave. Not developed.
This is not a smart civilization.
Only 7 continents. But yeah, so we probably would actually have to explain to them like that we divide up where we divide up and classify the land masses on our planets,
Mm-hmm.
and we call them continents.
Because
And then if we ask them how many continents does Earth have, and they do a whole study.
Because if they just looked at Earth, from space,
Yeah.
some of the continents are pretty obvious lines to draw.
Pretty obvious.
Your
Yeah.
Afro-Eurasia is definitely a different thing than America, right?
Definitely. Right.
And so maybe they'd have their own conclusions as to how many continents there are. We could ask the aliens. There'd be an objective, outside view. They wouldn't cut up Europe though, so there's no reason to unless you know Europeans
No, yeah,
versus Asians.
there's obviously no reason. I could get on board with the whole
the two-continent worldview.
Yeah, I could. I'm still looking at a plate tectonics map here. What is this, a Mercator projection?
Probably.
Which Mercator projection is the one that stretches out the north.
Is Greenland
poles.
massive?
Greenland is massive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mercator projection. So it's a Mercator projection with the plates stenciled onto it.
Mm-hmm.
And I can definitely see the two-continent split.
Co-host number 2, are you still sold in to your buying into your elementary school education?
Let's call her co-host B.
Co-host B?
Yeah. Beta. That'd
Why?
be cool. Yeah,
The beta host.
I'll be alpha, you be beta.
Why?
What am I?
You're not
Prime.
We're the co-host, you're the host.
Oh yeah.
Why am I the secondary co-host?
He's the one
I
who
did
gave
say
you 2
first.
Why?
I can't remember what order you said your name's in, but that's going to be my defense.
Okay. Yep.
You're the one who pointed at us. Pointed at me first.
Ah, very good.
So you
Okay.
are too.
Fair. I accept this. Okay. I buy into the 7 still, but not in that, like, the traditional 7.
Mm-hmm.
So I read a news article, I think last year sometime, and they were talking about how New Zealand is a part of, like, a lost sunken continent. And so, and I think people, I don't know if it actually happened or not, but people were trying to get that classified as a continent in its own. And I like the idea of that. Like,
Okay.
there is a continent out there, but it's just sunken and underwater.
So what continent are you ousting?
Eurasia's
Eurasia's one.
because it doesn't make sense that it's
Yeah.
separate.
Mm-hmm.
It does not make sense.
It is a cultural divide, and while I think that the continents, it's okay to divide them differently, like have a different class, like a
right.
different method of splitting them up.
Than what we have now.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Like North and South America, the difference is that there's a canal or whatever, so they're technically separate. And I think it's okay to use water masses or bodies of water, and then also cultural different. Like it doesn't have to be one system that classifies every continent.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
But
okay, I see what you're saying.
Russia is technically Europe, and it makes up most of.
No, Russia's part. It's part of it is in Europe. That's the thing.
But
Russia
it is
spans
a
2 continents.
European
country.
country, but it is mostly Asia. And
Yeah,
that does
it
not
is
make
an
any sense to me.
Eastern European country.
And that is something that I have, throughout elementary school or whatever, I was like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I remember asking one of my history teachers once, can we call Russians Asian? But no, you can't.
You can't, because they're culturally
Slavic,
closer to Europeans.
which is Eastern European.
The people who live in Siberia, they would be sort of. I can imagine they would be Asian in culture, if they're far deep into Siberia. But I don't know. I don't know these. I've never been.
Yeah, never done that study. So now the question, I think the natural next question is, in the last 5 minutes here, why/how do we split oceans up? It's all connected.
Yeah.
What's the point?
Because oceans are things surrounded by continents.
Yeah, so the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans are kind of more or less easily seen to be 2 separate bodies of water. But the Pacific also gets divided into like the Indian Ocean. I never understood like why do we
Okay,
have the
so
Indian Ocean?
I don't remember what ocean it is, but I have seen a picture. I'm somewhere on the internet, and it was like where the two like ocean air quote oceans meet, and they're like very clearly different, like
Bodies of water.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like they
okay.
look different.
How do they look
Like
different?
one side
There's
is
different-
lighter than the other one.
There's different chemical compositions. There are different temperatures.
Yeah,
because
so
of
like
There's like a line drawn in the
Yeah,
the
I think we can
proverbial
probably
go
sand.
see.
put it in the show notes or something, but
Okay.
like I think there are more scientific bases.
And
Bases.
Bases? Yeah.
I think combining the Pacific and Indian Ocean would be like the Afro-Eurasia of oceans.
Yeah.
Because the Pacific Ocean is already... There are places in the Pacific Ocean where if you dig like straight through the earth, a line coming out like the opposite side, if you start in the Pacific Ocean, you'll still be in the Pacific Ocean on the other side. Like it encompasses more than half of the planet.
I did not know that.
And
yeah,
to
that
make
makes
it
sense.
larger would be... You'd have to make a push for that.
Yeah.
But I could almost see the Atlantic Ocean being cut up into two oceans. There's sort of like the northern part and the southern part.
Actually, the world map that I pulled up here, again, another Mercator projection, it does have it split up into two. I mean, it's not technically, we don't consider it two different oceans, but it is labeled North Atlantic Ocean, South Atlantic Ocean.
And so you could definitely draw more lines. But simplifying, there are two oceans, the Atlantic and the Pacific. The Arctic is part of the Atlantic. There's one ocean.
That's interesting. Though.
It's the water.
I want to see that.
The ocean.
Yeah, the
it's
ocean.
out there.
There's at least one. I want to see that line. That I've never heard of that.
Yeah,
that's a thing.
It's the same response if the aliens come and ask us how many oceans there are. At least one.
At least one. Maybe four.
Maybe four.
Okay, I found a news article talking about this picture with the two separate things. I'm not going to read through it right now because it's pretty long, but I think it is...
I have a picture. I just want to see
It
a
is
picture.
explaining that this is like a BS misconception kind of thing, so maybe.
Oh, so that there isn't actually a line?
Well, there is.
Oh.
But I'm not reading through it right now, but the listeners can if they want.
Did you see the picture? The picture will be
yeah,
in the
that
show
looked like
notes,
land
listeners.
and water. That
Go
didn't
look
look
at
like
it.
water.
That's
and
like
water.
that is a line
you can do
in
whatever you
the
want,
water
listener.
itself.
You're your own person, you know?
No kidding.
But I think there is probably an explanation that is different than what it is played out to be. We can just link this in the show notes.
Yep.
Yeah.
And people can read it for themselves.
So I had another sort of larger what's with that, but we don't have time for that. Did you say you had something short to
Oh yeah.
How much time do we have left?
It's kind of this can kind of be like
a
couple of minutes. Yeah, this can kind of be like a preparation for our next segment, the news segment.
A lead in.
Because it's a lead in, yeah. Because it was originally a news segment that I found. It's hilarious. So the title of the article is "Breaking: Astronomer Announces Discovery of Mars."
Yes,
that was kind of the reaction I had. Like,
very
what?
good.
Well, so I read through it.
How recent is it?
This is published on the 21st of March.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
10 days ago.
Yeah, from when we're recording this.
Yep.
So apparently there was an astronomer. Oh, what's the dude's name? Dunsby. Published a report on the Astronomer's Telegram, a news service that deals with astronomical events, that described how he detected a, quote, very bright optical transient near the Trifid and Lagoon nebulae on Tuesday evening. An optical transient is just something in the sky that we see that moves.
Sure.
The astronomer talk.
Of course.
So he goes on to describe it. The object was visible throughout the full duration of the observations and not seen when this field was observed previously. The optical transient is the brightest star in the field. Further observations are strongly encouraged to establish the nature of this very bright optical transient. So he actually published that. And then this prompted the Astronomer's Telegram to issue... further investigation revealed that the bright object was actually Mars.
Just Mars.
Yeah. So the Astronomer's Telegram found that out. They issued a correction. The object reported in the previous article had been identified as Mars. It, it also sent a snarky tweet to Dunsby. Peter Dunsby is the guy's name.
He was the one who published this article.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
I can imagine.
it's a certification. It's like a certificate that says for discovery of Mars. Congratulations, Professor Peter Dunsby.
So
Oh,
embarrassing.
man. I
Oh
know.
my gosh.
That's like you can't like face your astronomy colleagues anymore. You know,
No.
every time they're gonna be like, "Congratulations on discovering Mars."
he took it pretty well though. He tweeted out a reply saying, "Lesson for today: check, triple check, and then check some more."
Yeah, if I was one of it, I would never let him let that go.
Was it Mars? Like, was he working alone? Did he have anybody else on his team who was
Oh, I
like,
bet he did,
that-
but
is
you know
that
they all just
Mars?
did overlooked it. I
Any
don't know.
anything he does for the rest of his life, like, you sure that's not Mars, man?
every time he
Hey, look, it's
discovers
the guy who
anything.
discovered
It's
Mars
the guy who discovered Mars.
in 2018.
So
He'll
I
never
thought that
live
was
it down.
hilarious.
Poor guy. That is hilarious. though.
Uh,
And with that, we're out of time. Join us in a few. We would say a few minutes. If it's a few minutes for us, it is a few seconds for the listeners.
Yeah.
So
and a few seconds.
And it's like half an hour for us,
yeah,
usually.
yeah. So enjoy your time. We certainly will. Yeah. Hey, listeners. Hello. Welcome back. We're here. Once again.
I don't know how much of that Carson's gonna keep
For
all
all of
sincerely,
it.
I sincerely hope he starts with, hey listeners.
And this
So
is,
even if he doesn't, they know that it's in there.
I'm
They
just,
know it's in there.
I'm just, providing a comfortable atmosphere. You
Yeah.
know, we're real laid back.
Mhm.
It's the
It's
Laid
as
Back
if our
Man's podcast.
it's as if our listeners are in here just kind of conversing with us.
I'm pretty sure the podcast that's going to come out right before this, I kept referring to as the Thinking Man's podcast.
The Thinking Man's
So this
podcast.
we're gonna chill out for a week.
Okay.
Tell us
Okay.
how your day was, listeners. You can't, maybe in the comments. But Ethan's got some news for us.
I do. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna start with pop quiz. Taylor, tell me what dark matter is.
I don't know.
Come on. Well, explain the.
Well, no, that's
explain.
the joke.
Yeah, that is the joke. Yeah. I suddenly realized I have to explain this a little more.
Oh.
Tell somebody who has never heard the term dark matter before why it's a thing.
Well, the universe is heavier than people expect it to be,
Okay.
and there's not enough visible matter to
To account for that.
to
yeah.
account for that. Yeah.
So there's a bunch of stuff.
And no one knows what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so
it's
astronomers and astrophysicists, in their infinite creativity, came up with the term dark matter.
It is not actually dark.
Well, I
Okay.
mean, it doesn't radiate light.
It doesn't interact with light or normal matter.
It doesn't
for that.
couple with many of the fields.
Mhm.
Couples with the Higgs field. It's got mass.
So, Carter,
Yeah.
you're not off the hook. Pop quiz. Tell me how we know that dark matter is a thing in terms of galaxies.
Inside a galaxy?
Yeah.
Is it something to do? Because I know when galaxies rotate,
Mm-hmm.
you know, if you were just following normal rotational mechanics,
Like Newton's laws.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
the outside edges of them would be moving faster than the middle because they have a bigger radius to go
Yeah.
around.
Right.
And when we actually look at them, that's not the case.
Mm-hmm. And we can look at the outside edges by measuring like the stars that are on the outside.
If you
edges.
like focus in on a star and watch it move,
watch it move.
it's not moving any faster than the stuff towards the center of the galaxy. And I think that's due to dark matter. I might be wrong.
No, you're right. You're
Hey.
right. You're right. Right. Yeah. So the interaction there is we see the stars moving slower than they should be, which tells us that the galaxies themselves are heavier than what we can see, and so that's how we've previously
Postulated.
postulated that dark matter is actually a thing. However, we don't don't know what dark matter is. It's probably it probably didn't
It's
probably
anyone's
actually
guess.
isn't matter, or up until this week, it probably wasn't matter is what we assumed. There was still a good possibility that it could have been just a lack of understanding in how gravity works on large scales.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we weren't for sure. Well, turns out astronomers, where were they?
Where were they?
In a
I'd
laboratory,
like to say,
probably.
yeah, I'd like
There
to
might
say
have been
they
a
were.
telescope involved, an observatory.
Okay, well, researchers, they were using the Dragonfly telephoto array, which is in New Mexico. They were measuring a galaxy called NGC 1052-DF2.
Very
Really rolls off the
creative.
tongue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they noticed that it's does not have any dark matter.
Oh.
They
Yeah.
just
So
noticed that.
this isn't.
Well, I mean, they did the exactly what Carter did. They measured
they looked
the
at it and they
rotation,
were
and it actually yeah, the speeds were aligning with regular old Newtonian gravity. There wasn't any missing matter than what we could see.
so that's sort of proof that this isn't a large-scale misunderstanding. It's like
Exactly.
there is at least one that behaves the way it should.
Exactly. And this
So
is a
there's
very
something funky about
small,
the
very
rest of 'em.
sparse galaxy. I'm not for sure how this galaxy was created. Really, astronomers are not for sure how any galaxies are created.
Well, isn't one of the like defining differences between like a star cluster and a galaxy like the presence of dark matter?
Can't
like-
confirm or deny.
Good question.
Is there, because I think I remember talking about that. Ethan and I were both in a astronomy class last semester.
Yeah, but I'm trying to remember that, and
And
I don't remember that coming up. That has to be.
I think that was one of the differences.
Oh,
Bear with
okay.
us.
So we obviously live in the Milky Way galaxy.
Obviously.
Galaxy is derived from the Greek galaxias, literally meaning milky.
Ah.
So
That's cool.
Yeah, haven't learned milk yet in my classes.
That's not part of the.
Not been in the vocab.
yeah. So anyway, when we first discovered that there were things out there other than the Milky Way that existed outside of the Milky Way, that's when we said like, oh, there's other galaxies in the universe.
Those are milk
So that's
balls.
why I disagreed that dark matter is a formal definition for a galaxy, because we did not know that dark matter was even a thing.
I mean, not
that
like
happened.
immediately a definition, but like
Oh, did it
now.
eventually became one? Yeah.
I think that's like a part
Which
of
obviously
it.
we know that there's still no formal definition.
Yeah, and also it might be like a factor in the voting, you know, because there's no formal definition for the Pluto as a planet, but because there was stuff in the way of its orbit that's like a strike against it. So maybe the lack of dark matter is the same. It's like a strike against its galaxy card. It might not be one.
Yeah.
I don't know though. Haven't taken astronomy.
Well, let me read this real quick. This paragraph here. It says, well, they refer to the galaxy as DF2. That's how they shortened it.
F2.
DF2
I was going to
upends.
call it Jeb. But
We
DF2
could call it
works.
Jeb.
Jeb the Galaxy.
Let's call it Jeb. Let's just call it Jeb.
Nice.
Jeb
Named.
upends current theories about how galaxies form, which predict that the gravity of dark matter is necessary for early galaxies to hang together. This is a quote from one of the researchers. From one of the researchers. It's like you take a galaxy and you only have the stellar halo and globular clusters, and it somehow forgot to make everything else. There is no theory that predicted these types of galaxies. The galaxy is a complete mystery, as everything about it is strange. How you actually go about forming one of these things is completely unknown. So this just.
Do they have any idea like how old it is? Like, is there a chance that it's just much older than any other galaxies that we've discovered before? And so, somehow the whatever dark matter did exist to form the galaxy has gone away.
It's a good question. I don't know if the team also tried to date the galaxy. However, some of their ideas on how it could form, how it could have formed, is that it was the result of a collision of two larger galaxies, And because this, like I said, this is a very sparse, very small, almost like a star cluster kind of galaxy.
So it's like the residue.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
so,
was kind of
like-
like some stars kind of got thrown off and they stuck together
Like
when they got thrown off. But they didn't get thrown off with a bunch of dark matter. They just got thrown off, and their own gravity was enough to keep them together.
is there a chance that this is like a transition between a galaxy and just a star cluster?
That's a good question. Again, we don't really have formal definitions, so you can't really say like
Right.
it is
Yeah.
a transition or it
And
isn't.
we can't wait to find out.
Yep.
We're not gonna be looking at this for
Timescale's a little off.
Yeah,
billions
that's
of
true. That's
years.
true. Well, I mean, we just need to find another one of these.
Mhm.
You know, this was a
Well,
big
maybe
Easy,
a little
easy.
closer, maybe
Just
a little
find
farther
one.
away. Yeah, you can find Mars as many times as you like. So surely.
Let's find this one again,
Yeah.
but later.
See, it worked. Cosmology is awesome. There's loads of unanswered questions in
Mhm.
cosmology.
And there's loads of different ideas on how to answer the questions.
Ethan, where's all the antimatter? You know?
Good question.
This is your job to figure out now. You've been assigned this. You'll be graded at the end of the
This
semester.
is your undergrad
This
research
is-
project.
Is this, I was gonna say, no, I was gonna say, is this the host assigning tasks to his co-hosts?
Yes, it is now.
Co-host Alpha,
Co-host Alpha,
figure out.
figure out where all the antimatter is.
Report back next week.
Yeah. So for the listeners, theoretically, there should be equal amounts of antimatter and normal matter because they get created in pairs
Correct.
in the early universe. So a big lingering question in physics: where is it all? You don't just look out and find equal amounts of both. It's mostly matter.
Mm-hmm.
And so now Ethan's going to report back next week and tell us where it all was.
Sir, yes, sir. What if I'm the host next week?
Yeah?
Then you'll be my inferior.
Yeah.
What if you're not even on the podcast next week?
But you're
There's a
already
chance.
done with the research, so you can just
Yeah.
be like, read this.
Oh, gotcha.
I
I can
typed up a
order you
script.
to read it. Yeah, gotcha.
We've devolved a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. The last sentence in this article.
It's breaking
I
news.
didn't read it. No, it says, according to the press release, the team has identified 23 other diffuse galaxies, including 3 with properties similar to Jeb.
Yeah.
And-
just calling it Jeb now.
And they hope to begin examining them in detail soon to tease out their secrets. So there could be others that they've already discovered, but they still haven't done the
They've
math
not
behind
published
it.
it or anything.
Yeah.
The
Is
math.
our podcast popular enough to familiarize this name? Like, can we catch that on?
Jeb? You think?
Jeb.
I don't.
Jeb.
There will be, I don't know, dozens of people calling it Jeb.
Yeah.
Yeah, including all 5 of us or
Mhm.
6 of us on the. how many
I
is it?
think if we
7?
work at it a little bit more.
7.
I think there's 7 of us.
8.
8?
Did
There's
you
a
just
number.
say
There's a number
8
of us.
because we just went
No,
from
it
5
is
to
8.
6 to 7 to.
Where'd you get 5? Anyways.
Yeah, that would mean there's only 2 other people.
Yeah. Come on, man.
Come on, Ethan.
True.
I think there's only 3 people on the podcast,
There's at least
and
one.
I'm not on it.
There's at least one.
There's
correct.
at least 3.
I can
Let's.
confirm. Well, I don't know
when
that you guys are
aliens
here.
visit, we will explain to them what our podcast is, and then we will ask them how many
Yeah,
members.
we
are
said
there
that
for
the first
podcasts.
thing they were going to ask was not going to be how many continents there are. It will be how many people are on this
They will be
podcast.
most concerned about our podcast.
We are beaming these podcasts, each and every one, into space as far as we can. So
As
so
far as we can. That's
aliens
true. Well,
can-
we can't exactly determine how far they go, can we?
Mhm. Yeah, there might be one uninterrupted wave that makes
But
it all the
one
way.
individual photon.
Yeah, they see us. Do you guys know frogs can see individual photons?
Yeah, I did
I
know
have
that.
heard this.
That's crazy.
That is ridiculous.
So listeners, if we're in a dark, hallway, it's a long hallway. And I've got a lamp and I start moving away from you, you'll see the lamp get dimmer. It'll get dimmer and dimmer because less of the photons are reaching your eyes. And eventually I'll be so far away that you just won't see it anymore. It's too dark. You don't get any more photons.
How far away is
You
that,
can't see it.
Carter?
I don't know how far that. I'll do the math later. But frogs, you take the lamp, you get it farther and farther away from the frog. It will eventually, instead of getting dimmer, it'll just start blinking. They will see the lamp blink because they can detect and see every time one photon hits their eye. They'll be like, oh,
Incredible.
there's the lamp. Frogs are crazy.
How did they develop to have eyes like
Or
this?
why? Yeah.
Yeah, why?
It might just
Why
be a
was this a thing?
size thing.
Like,
Frogs, they're
Like
little.
frog eyes are so much smaller than human eyes.
but frog.
So many less receptors in their eyes. I don't know. That's good.
Their
yeah, that's a good
eyes
question.
compared to their body ratio is much larger
Yeah,
than ours.
they also swallow with their eyes.
Yeah. Maybe we can link a video of frogs when they swallow. They use their eyeballs because they don't have like tongues. So they use their eyeballs to push food into their stomach. It's really funny.
Yeah, it's pretty gross.
Well,
I did not know that was a
there
thing.
will be a video in the show notes.
Wait,
for the
frogs?
listeners.
You're saying frogs don't have tongues?
They have tongue because
Do
What
they
are the
have
things that
tongues?
reach out
Oh.
and grab the
Frogs
the-
do have
yeah,
tongues.
they like
They
lash
just
out
don't
at
have
flies
tongues
and
that can
stuff.
like. Their tongues are not capable of like pushing
Yeah,
the food
yeah, they
down
don't have,
their throat
like,
like
an
we can.
esophagus.
like
Esophagus.
throat muscles.
Yeah.
It just transitions into their bodies.
They just because they
Obviously
don't really have
frogs
a
have
neck.
tongues.
Frogs, do they?
No,
Just kind of
not really.
head, body.
Yeah,
It's more
'cause
like mouth body. You know,
they don't.
Think about it.
They don't need a throat because they just push their eyes in.
Yeah, frogs are more like, yeah, they're a body with legs on it, and the body also
Has a mouth.
has a
Has a
mouth
little hinge
and
on
some
it for a
eyes.
And
mouth, yeah.
huge eyeballs.
That can be used to push food down into the body part. It's disgusting. There'll be a link in the show notes for our listeners.
I was gonna say that was a nice deviation from what were we talking about?
Jeb.
Jeb. We were talking about Jeb.
I can see how it would take a long time for these people to do the math, because like astronomy math is notoriously hard, isn't it? It's like
Yeah, there aren't just equations that work for everything.
You have to derive the equations first.
For every
Mhm.
situation.
Yeah.
It's awful,
Yeah.
honestly.
And astronomy math is also like almost purely statistical math.
yeah. So I can
a lot
see
of
how
estimates
they're
involved.
still
Mhm.
working on it
Yeah.
for these other galaxies.
Yeah. It'd be nice if you could just observe things and then have like, yeah, where's our supercomputing power? We could just like observe these galaxies and just plug the data into the computer and just say, tell us what these things are.
I wonder if astronomy math takes a bit more creativity than the algorithms that we have invented so far, like problem-solving skills.
Because you need to
Yeah.
develop like parameters for each
Mm-hmm.
specific thing that you find.
Which is probably not the case, and we're dumb, and there totally exists simulation software. But as far as I know,
Yeah, we're not experts in any sense.
Yeah. We had another episode of non-experts pretending they are experts. That's like the second name for the podcast.
Unqualified
Since
experts.
since
unqualified
day one.
experts. Yeah, that was a potential name. We had a bunch. There was a vote. It was a 2-round. It was very good voting system. I made sure of it. The structure was flawless. It was perfectly democratic, unlike a lot of world
Yeah.
voting structures.
What were the other names? We had obviously this
Electoral
one.
college.
This
on.
was Taylor's.
This
Taylor,
was-
this was your
I
idea.
named the podcast.
Yeah.
Yep.
This was
Yeah.
Plugging my own ideas here.
I had two ideas.
Unqualified experts was Carter's idea.
hmm
I don't even
Which-
remember the other ideas. This was months ago.
My ideas were
Yeah, it
a
was.
method to the madness.
It's been a while.
Which there's not really a method to this madness.
Yep,
There,
it's-
there is. There's segments like we talk.
There's segments.
We talk about
and we
things.
talk. That's the method. We're
It
just-
would be a false
we're
title,
chatting.
I think.
And it kind of went along with the whole science principle, method, right?
the scientific
As in
method.
and the other one was, oh geez, something about. Shoot, I can't
Guess it wasn't a very catchy title.
remember. Apparently, it wasn't.
Jesse had one.
Jesse did have
That
one.
got shot
It's
down.
about physics, all things physics.
All things physics. Yeah.
Oh, yes, yes.
And he
Got
just
that was shot down. Yeah.
nearly left the crew immediately.
He couldn't handle it, poor guy.
Vetoed his.
Sorry, Jesse, if you're listening.
We vetoed his name idea.
The if in that statement is a very strong if.
I had another news
If
topic
easily.
that we could have
If.
talked about, but we didn't end up talking about it.
For right now.
I did, but I mean, in the
We-
last 2 minutes, I can just notify you guys, just like a scan, like, Headline scan. Here we go.
I
Ready?
mean, we need more filler time. We've been messing around a bunch.
You ready? Ready for
Yes.
this? Scientists say they've discovered an unknown human organ. I'm going to let you guys guess where this organ is.
Where?
Mm-hmm.
It is. It's not in a limb. It's not in an appendage. It must. It's. I don't think it's just in the normal body cavity.
The normal body cavity. He gestured to his stomach area.
Like the torso and there's like
There's a couple cavities
chest
in that
cavity.
area. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, Ethan's our
Stomach
Abdominal
cavity.
resident anatomy
Abdominal.
guy.
Yep.
It must be. In one of the 7 backs.
What's wrong with you?
Taylor, where is it?
It's somewhere. Has it been confirmed?
Uh,
This organ.
yeah. I think that's why it was in the news. Yeah, it's been confirmed.
Okay.
To explain 7 backs to the listeners.
No one cares.
No one cares.
I'm kind of the proxy for the listeners here.
No, they care. They care. It's interesting. Go on.
In the SPS room, we were talking about Ronnie Coleman, who is a bodybuilder.
Yep.
And someone, I forget who, brought up that he had 7 back surgeries. And one of our fellow physics students said, where did he get so many backs?
Ethan, you have a guess as to who that was?
Was it Lake?
It was Lake.
I hope Lake listens to this. Oh, I appreciate that.
Anyways, I imagine it's in your lower guts area
Wrong.
somewhere.
I was doing it on the back.
It's
upper
not
back,
in any cavity
shoulder
in the body.
blade.
It's not anywhere.
It's outside
Does
your
anybody
body.
know what the largest organ in the human body is?
Skin.
The skin. Yes. This organ is called the interstitium.
Which I don't like that. That's garbage. Skin is not an
Interstitium.
organ.
And
Your
it's-
liver's your biggest organ.
Is
I
Australia
will
a
fight you
continent?
about
This
it.
new organ, we got to get this over with. The new organ lies right underneath the skin.
Oh.
And the reason we didn't even know it was there, okay, their definition for organ, I don't really know the scientific definition for organ, but we didn't know it was there because normal methods of analyzing tissue requires us to take dead tissue, like slice it up and then treat it with chemicals, and that process always like this interstitium is like basically a fluid filled lining right underneath the skin,
And it had been getting
and
like,
every
stripped
time
away.
it would always get stripped away. That fluid would leave and the cavity would collapse, and so it
So-
always just looked like a couple of more layers of skin.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So
But
how
new-
did it say how they discovered it then?
Yeah, it was like micro imaging techniques.
Hmm.
Like, shoot, I can't find it.
You got all day. We got a couple minutes of frog talk Carson can cut out.
If he does, people are not gonna know them. Okay, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Think of it.
explains it, Doctor.
Bring back the frog talk. I want to hear it.
Oh, it's used. They used one of
Keep it
those
in.
flexible tubes with the cameras on them.
Oh, like
the
scope.
Yeah,
Yeah.
scope. Yeah. So the doctors that
Did they
professionally do that are called endoscopists.
did they just end up in this like fluid layer?
I
And they're like,
guess,
whoa,
yeah, apparently.
what's
going on
that?
here?
What is that? Yeah, exactly.
It's new. Did they check if it was Mars first? Because sometimes it's just Mars.
Guys, it's just the skin. Come on.
No, that's got it. They have to publish it first,
hmm
and then somebody else has to figure out, like, wait, you
Obviously.
were actually looking at Mars the whole time.
Come on.
So stay tuned to see if there's Mars under your skin. We'll catch you in a few seconds, listeners. And welcome back, listeners, to segment 3, the game part. There's no catchy title for this one, but this time
The game part.
it's a versus. We're gonna have a little bit of
The
a
verses, yes, we've
gonna-
done this before.
pit two scientific giants, against one another in bare knuckle combat.
Bare knuckle combat.
Except that's not important. That's not possible because we're talking about two sort of one corporate conglomerate and one government
entity.
Government civilian entity.
Two entities. We're talking about NASA and SpaceX.
Yes.
Is the short and long of it, or the the long and short of it. Just the short of it. But yeah, we're going to talk about NASA and SpaceX, and the object of our competition is to decide who's going to get to Mars first.
That's going to be up to Taylor to decide.
Not because NASA's on Mars. They've got stuff there.
Yeah.
But this is going to be who's going to put people on Mars first.
In the race to get... It's a weird race. It's another space race. It's not between two different countries. It's two different entities.
It's not really a race either, because these are very interdependent community. Like most of SpaceX's funding is from like contracts with NASA, so
true. Yeah.
They could just be like, we're not going to pay you anymore. So
they
not
could
really
take
a race.
SpaceX out if they want.
They could just win.
So how this is going to work is I will be arguing the NASA side of it.
And I will be arguing for Mr. Muskie's SpaceX.
And at the end, we will decide definitively
by we, you mean you. Yes.
will make it first.
Yes.
Our predictions.
Hard predictions.
All right, here's how this is going to work. I've got a timer set for 3 minutes. I'm going to try to explain everything that NASA is planning.
All of NASA.
Yeah, explain all of NASA. Their plans to get humans to Mars. Then Carter will have 3 minutes. Then we'll have a back and forth tussle.
Tussle. We're going to actually fight.
And then Taylor will decide at the end of it to round off the podcast. Ready? Starting the timer now. Okay. First things first, NASA actually just released their actual plan back in 2015. Their official plan to get humans to explore Mars and eventually colonize Mars. I did not know that NASA was planning on colonizing Mars. I thought that was just a SpaceX thing. Okay, they broke it down into 3 stages. Their first stage, they call it the Earth Reliant phase. This phase continues using the International Space Station until 2024. To kind of use it as like a stepping stone. Well, we're just basically using it for the same reasons that we're using it right now, testing how humans live in space, what we need to do to make sure that they can survive in space for long periods of time. The second stage is called the Proving Ground. This one, despite the whole going to Mars aspect, this one is the most interesting to me. They plan on doing lots of missions in what they call the cislunar space, so near the moon, but beyond the moon, about 40,000 miles, 40,000 kilometers, some measurement beyond the moon. They plan on sending missions there, vehicles there using the Space Launch System, which will be the most powerful rocket available on Earth when it is launched in 2020, I believe is the first time it'll be launched. So that'll be cool. And then eventually they will also send humans out to that space and have them survive out there for like about a year and then come back.
All right.
So they're like, we're pushing this one step at a time. We're not going to just jump to the end. And then the final phase is independence from Earth resources. The Earth independent phase includes long-term missions to the lunar surface with surface habitats that only require... It's still kind of like a proving ground kind of thing, except because we're not going to Mars like straight away. But we will develop the infrastructure that is required to go to Mars, stay on Mars for long periods of time and do research and live there, and then come back safely. NASA is still aiming for human missions to get to Mars in the 2030s through Earth independence, though Earth independence could take decades longer. So, and actually, for us to actually become independent from Earth, hence space stations or lunar stations, colonization of Mars, that kind of stuff. But yeah, they aim for the 2030s, and they've got a bunch of steps to get there. The Space Launch System, by the way, is like right around the corner. The Orion spacecraft developed by Boeing will be the spacecraft that the humans will live in on their way.
On the
So
way
they
to
will
Mars.
be testing that. They will be testing that. That was 3 minutes. Ready,
I wasn't
Carter?
looking.
I'm gonna get my own timer going so I can see it.
Okay.
But yeah, so Mr. Muskie, he's a bit more of a maverick with his planning. He gets a lot of eye rolling when he says his dates and things like that. But he plans for SpaceX to start sending supplies. You know, the first sort of round of rockets, because you don't just send one rocket to Mars when you're planning to put people there. You do some supply missions first. And so he's planning to do his first round of supply missions in 2022, and then land 2 crafts will go then, and then 4 more will go in 2024, with 2 with some more supplies and 2 with carrying passengers. And the backbone, yeah,
He's sending people to Mars in 2024, is what you just said.
that's his idea.
Oh, okay.
He does get a bit of eye rolling for these dates.
I can see.
But
I see why.
provided, you know, he hits all of his deadlines. But I think the argument for my good pal Elon is that the rocket they are planning to use, SpaceX is planning to use, aptly named the BFR, standing for Big Effing Rocket.
Yep.
Supposedly. There's also other names for
supposedly.
it. Or other possible names that it
is essentially just a bunch of the tried and true Falcon 9s.
Yeah. Which is
sort of stapled together. There's a bit more math and science to it.
Together.
But the BFR will have 42 engines. And so, but the idea is that they already have this heavy lift rocket that works and is reusable, and so they're going to modify it, I guess, and send it to Mars. And the construction of the BFR is planned to begin within the next couple of years. So, if we hit our deadlines, and Elon Musk is very sort of aspirational in his deadlines, but SpaceX was the first company to reliably reuse, you know, rocket parts. They do things, right? They get things done on time sometimes. Another point is that with the moon colony, Elon Musk is like very upset that we don't have one already. He's like, it is the current year argument. It's 2018. What are we doing, humans?
Yep.
And so
it's the current year.
He's skipping that altogether because he's like, this should already exist, but whatever. We're going straight to Mars.
Straight there.
And Elon Musk also has dreams, big dreams. He wants to die on Mars.
Does he?
He wants. So this is
an old man.
He
definitely
will go
within
to
his
Mars.
He will
lifetime.
go to Mars.
Yeah.
And that's where he's gonna find his final resting place.
I could see,
That's
like,
quite the jump.
He's very driven.
Hey,
if his plans do not work, he will launch himself to Mars alone.
And that
And then
is
just go and
the
die.
sort of the
Poor
final closing. Being a private company and being able to do whatever they want, they could, you know, SpaceX could send someone to Mars and not plan to bring them back. And it might be Elon Musk himself. He would volunteer to go. So they can, I think they can accelerate their timelines a lot more than NASA because they can sort of do these things that a government entity would not be allowed to do.
So I don't think they can. Now we're into the argument phase here. I should set a timer. I don't think they can because first of all, they've only launched one vehicle or rocket that's larger than their normal Falcon 9, Falcon Heavy. It did successfully put something not into Mars orbit. That's a misconception. Lots of people don't understand. It is orbiting the sun still, and its furthest point is as far out as Mars goes. Yeah. But it's not in Mars orbit, and it's not even orbiting Mars. Yeah, it's just out there.
Those are the same sentence.
No, Mars orbit, as in like it's not orbiting like on the same path as Mars.
I see.
And orbiting Mars, it's not like in low Mars orbit.
It's not. It's just on the same.
It just gets out there, and then it comes right back to Earth, and then it goes back out there again, and it comes right back. That's just how it tracks around the sun. Okay, anyway, they've only done one of those. They still have a long way to go to prove that these vehicles, they haven't even launched humans into low Earth orbit yet. They don't even have technologies for that. That's not developed yet.
There's a lot of milestones.
And NASA is a little more precise about this. They're like, this is what's happening. I forgot to mention they also plan on sending humans to an asteroid by 2025.
NASA?
Yeah.
And NASA is a little bit like they have more fine details.
It has to be fine details. Yeah, the government agency, they have to be like, we need this project
and I think
funded. We need this one funded.
While
it has to be fine details.
The government entity, will cause them to be sort of more on track and on their deadlines. I think that because NASA's funding is very much tied to the political climate of the United States, that makes it much more volatile. In their plans.
Touché.
And so if going to Mars is not top priority,
it will not happen.
It can get warehoused for other projects.
Ironically, though, even in the current political climate, NASA is getting better funding, which some people might be surprised about. But
I am surprised.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
It's like the administration wants NASA to go to the moon again, which is a part of their plan. So that's good. And NASA's getting bigger budget infusion, I guess.
The administration.
Yeah, I'm just gonna leave it at that. Yeah, so NASA, they've definitely got this planned out a little bit more. They definitely will test out the technologies better than SpaceX currently is/will in the near future.
I am putting my faith in Elon Musk. He is a freak of a man.
Yeah.
He can.
And that gets you places.
Yeah, once he puts his mind to something, it just happens. He'll start selling hats, He'll figure it out.
Yeah, I do. The hard deadlines and the fine details is a very appealing way of solving a problem. It makes me think that they have it more figured out. But if something goes wrong, they might not know how to adapt as well. Whereas Elon, not having such a hard plan, he hits a bump in the road, then he just diverts his path, and it's not very far off of what it was originally. So I think he might have a little bit more ingenuity in that sense. But also...
Verdict. We're waiting.
We're waiting. But...
The deliberations.
There's a little bit less...
The jury still out.
From what you have said, there's a little less regard for people in Elon's plan. And that is something that is important to me.
Considering you're trying to send people there.
Yeah, you kind of like I like the idea of having preliminary orbits and space experience because they don't know exactly what happens to people in space, and I think that's something that is very important when you are sending someone to Mars. And I don't know, I think NASA, I'm going to have to go with NASA on this one.
Boom.
That's all right.
They have a longer timeline, but I think it is more
rigorous.
It is. I see it working out better.
NASA's also the one with all the research in the bank,
Yeah.
Like they've been researching how humans survive in space.
Yeah, like
this whole
Scott
time.
Kelly's.
Yeah.
That whole thing. He was in
space.
Year in Space. Yeah.
Well, the verdict's out. NASA will reach Mars first. It's a fact now.
It is a fact.
Here on What's on the Fourth Floor.
Elon will put in a
You
good
heard it
attempt.
here first. Yes.
What about Boeing, though?
Well, technically Boeing will be technically Boeing will be there first if NASA's going first because it's Boeing spacecraft.
I can see Elon Musk getting petty enough to not let Boeing rockets be there first.
Oh yeah.
He'll work with NASA.
Yeah, he'll be like,
just
wait,
take a
wait,
SpaceX
yeah.
one. Take
Exactly.
the BFR.
Please.
And with that, we're out of time for our final segment. Listeners, I hope you enjoyed your time here. I certainly did. You've been listening to What's on the Fourth Floor. And what's the answer to this question we ask every week?
A bunch of frogs.
I was
falling
gonna
with their
say that's what I
eyeballs.
was gonna say.
A
bunch of
a
frogs.
menagerie of frogs.
See, we can't take that out now. That's got to be in there.
Yeah, there's several video cameras set up observing these frogs swallow from
So,
every angle.
Can a frog,
Alien geologist.
Can a frog swallow with its eyes in 0 gravity?
Ooh.
You think
Let's
it
get
needs,
NASA on that.
needs the
Get
gravity
NASA on
to
it.
push
Yeah,
it?
to like push it down. Because we have throat muscles.
Right.
Slide
Yeah,
down.
the frog. The
Frogs
frog
don't.
just needs to
It's
push
got
the
the
rocks.
Hello? If you're still here, it's because you're looking for more. If that's the case, check us out on Facebook at What's on the Fourth Floor and Twitter at OnFloor4. Again, that's Facebook, What's on the Fourth Floor, Twitter at OnFloor4. That's at OnFloor, the number 4.